Welcome to East Coast DNA. I'm sure many of our guests will recognize today's guest is Terry Kelly. Hi, Terry. Thank you for joining me
Hello,
today.
Darcy. How are you doing?
Good, good.
Great to
So,
be here.
yeah, you're one of the more legendary guests that I've had on the show.
Is that translation for old?
Well, I would say more so, especially being that we primarily focus on East Coast musicians. You're probably one of the more achieved. Being, I don't know how many ECMAs you would have had or been nominated for over the years. You're Juno Award winner, and I think probably I'm in my later 40s. I would say everyone my age, their parents had your albums playing as they were growing up. And I actually, when I think back of how I know who you are as a musician, your 90s hits are the ones that I really know.
Right.
But in my head, they feel like they were like everybody in the world knew them in my world at that point in time. So I feel like they're even older songs than they actually are.
Oh, okay. So was I ever in your school?
Oh yeah, it definitely would have been at some point. That was another aspect too, is that besides being a really well recognized musician, that you're a speaker, that you've gone and done motivational speaking all over the place, and you're an advocate for people with disabilities, and in the last couple decades, quite a bit with veterans as well. So very commendable.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, but well, with I came up with the idea to go to schools to speak in schools to diversify, and so I get some Saturdays and Sundays off,
Yeah, yeah.
and so it turned into something even more than I expected. And now, people who uh, had seen me in their school are now hiring me to do jobs. So it's
Amazing.
kind of interesting. And I should mention that, yeah, I'm an advocate for people who have disabilities. However, when I speak in public schools, it's not, they're children from all backgrounds, and
Mhm.
some have different abilities. But yes, for people with differing abilities. But one of my main focuses as well is for children who maybe have a difficult time believing in themselves or doubting themselves or not realizing how much easier with belief and with knowing how to change making a dream come true. So the way children think in general, and
Mhm.
they don't have to have a visible disability or deaf, blind, wheelchair, whatever. We all have a challenge of some sort. So that's important. That yes, disabilities, but um, everyone, we all have to grow in some way if we
Yeah.
recognize it.
No, that's an important distinction too, because it does include everybody. We all have our own things to overcome in life, and
Indeed,
I'm
yeah,
sure having that motivation to get out there, especially these days. I know I don't know how you find it, but children these days, we're much more aware of mental health issues and like anxieties that a lot of people have, especially with the digital age. A lot of people spend a lot of time indoors away from actual human contact. So I think it's probably more prevalent
indeed,
these days than it maybe had been in the past for some of those non-visible disabilities that you refer to.
yeah. And the other piece is that the fact is, children, whether they're blind or sighted or whatever, are overprotected these days, and
Hmm.
it's just the way things are. And sometimes when you're, and then I see children who aren't overprotected,
Hmm.
and you can see the difference in terms of them being more confident with themselves and also looking at the world in a different way. I talk about teaching children or ask them, "Are you blind in your mind?" So
Hmm.
how do you see yourself? How do you see others? How do you see the world around you? And so yeah, that's a big one. And, and then children who do have an actual disability are sometimes even more overprotected, because the schools for the deaf and the schools for the blind have been shut down for the most part in this country. There's only one school for the blind left in this country, and some of the children who go there are deafblind, and but the schools are gone.
Yeah,
and it's a terrible, terrible tragedy. And I even go so far as to say that it's an abuse to children. And it's a whole. We could talk. We could do a whole show on that one. I'll tell you.
I could imagine. Now, as somebody that's well versed in the subject, is that more so that we don't have the population numbers, that there's that many people that would go to those schools, or is it more so that we don't have government funding for that type of thing?
Well, it's mainly government funding, and I'm not. I mean, there are a bunch of different places where I guess the trajectory of that mindset has come from, and to some degree, it came from parents who wanted their children integrated into the regular school system.
Sure.
And it actually turned out to be, in many cases, to a great degree, segregation, because they end up because the schools, and there's where the money piece comes in. There's not enough money to properly help those children who are so-called integrated into the school system. And I don't even know if the money was there, it would work. My belief and my experience in life and my observation as I've traveled, I've spoken in thousands of schools, and I see children who are blind, and you name it, I've seen them. And the big piece is, if they're not immersed into a culture or an atmosphere where they can learn from one another, and where teachers they're not afraid of a kid falling down, or bumping into a wall, or whatever kids do as they learn to grow. You've got to be able to fall down and get scratched and bruised and all that jazz. But that's not allowed in public schools, even for kids who can see, for heaven's sakes. They got sponge and playgrounds, and they've got. When I was a kid, we had cast iron seats on the swings in the school, and so we learned, don't go near the swings beyond this little market, and there was, indentations in the ground. You knew not to do that. We had. I remember we had a merry-go-round that was actually on upside down, where when you sit on the merry-go-round, there were things, vertical things that went up they could hold on to. Well, someone didn't realize to put those on upside down where those things were down, and so we started pushing the merry-go-round and running to push it around, and then our ankle would get caught underneath the bar. Yeah. So okay, well let's. That should be flipped over. So we flip it over, bingo. So when we sprained our ankles, they said, okay, let's just flip it over. But maybe today they said, got to get rid of that merry-go-round. Yeah. So, exactly. Yeah, and then we learn to be, and it's a mindset thing, and it's a shame that those special schools are closed, and the public schools. I would even go, and I don't use the word can't very often, but let me even avoid using it now. But it's very, very difficult to work it. And I've seen children who have gone to public schools where their family environment is such that they end up doing well because they learn to adapt. And the parents say, okay, we got to get you out there, and you've got to integrate, and we'll figure out a way to get so you can swim, or I'll do the other things. And then, and then you can go show your phys ed teacher how you can do this, or go to a special camp for the summer for 6 days. And there are a bunch of those still around, and that are developing, that actually do give children an opportunity to self-advocate. And, so there's a bit of that, but even that's tough, because what happens, they go to the camp, they learn to do all kinds of things, everything from, swimming to gymnastics, you name it.
Mm-hmm.
And they get home back to the environment, and the parents are afraid, the teachers are afraid. So they spend 6 days at a camp, and they, yeah, I can do this. Yeah. Then they get back and they're not allowed, or they just forget because they're back in the old culture, old environment again. That's a challenge with that.
So how for yourself did that happen? Like if you yourself were not born with your vision issues, is it something that developed at a young age?
Yeah. Blind's okay. You can say blind.
Okay. So at the time that you were blind, did you go to a special school back then, or
eventually, yeah.
Okay.
So I lost my sight when I was 2 to a hereditary cancer called retinoblastoma. And so they and it was actually in my family. And if they eventually had to remove both my eyes, and I was a prosthetic eye. So as I like to say sometimes, they had to remove my eyes so the cancer wouldn't go to my brain. And I think I still have a brain, or when I shake my head, I hear a little rattle sometimes. Yeah. So, but anyway, so then when I was 2, and then my parents found out about the School for the Blind through the CNIB, the Canadian National Institute for the Blind. So they told my parents about the school. I lived in St. John's, Newfoundland, which meant I had to leave St. John's. Most kids left at 5, 6, 7. I tried the public school for 2 years, but then they sent me to the School for the Blind in Halifax at 7. And when I went to that school, it was tough on one level where I didn't want to be away from my mom and dad, brothers and sisters and friends, because it was safe and comfortable. Sure. Even though my mom and dad weren't overly protective at that time even. But I get to the School for the Blind, and nobody was overprotective. And I say, nobody felt sorry for me. No one was sad because of it. They taught us how, I remember one teacher one time saying, "You're blind, get over it." Now that sounds harsh, right? Yeah. The difference is they showed us how to get over it. And so when they say, get over it, well, now let's figure out what that means. So it means using your hearing, develop your ear sight, use your hands, use your sense of smell, use your sense of, big one, creativity and problem solving, right? So they said, we're going to show you a lot of stuff here at the school, but when you get out, people are going to continue to want to overprotect you, or you're going to want to do something. They'll say you can't do it because they are afraid and they just don't understand it. So my job is to show people, okay, I'll use my creativity. What if we did this? How could I do that? And I figure out how it's safe for me when I'm out of that school environment. So the environment that is with me is up here. The environment's in my brain and in my heart and it's not just a thought, it's knowing there's a way to make what I call a dream adjustment to make something work. So simple, I'll give you an example. So in school, we wanted to play hockey. But before that, we were messing around with the basketball thing. So how did we find the basketball net? Teacher, phys ed teacher said, okay, figure this out. I got a sense of how you're going to do this, but I want you kids to sit around, talk about it, and figure out how are you going to find that basketball net. So we ended up putting a beeper on the edge of the basketball net. Now we start throwing the ball towards the sound, which we know where that beeper is. It's right on the edge. So we just go above that little beeper and drop it through the basket. Right? So that's using our ear sight, but it was done through imagination, creativity. So we do that. So then I wanted to play hockey. And then we just extended that principle. We put a beeper on one net, a buzzer on another net. And those of us some kids in the school could see a little bit, but those of us who were totally blind, then we listen to the sound of the beeper, buzzer. Sometimes I like to say we get confused, scoring ourselves.
Yeah.
But I remember a time the Toronto Maple Leafs used to do that. Right? My favorite team. They don't anymore. I don't think as much.
Yeah.
So, so we did that. And what did that do? So here's a dream adjustment. Here's a making a dream come true. So I wanted to be a hockey player.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'd been home, maybe in St. John's, people, and in fact, sometimes in the winter, before I went to the school, because I was there till I was 7, my friends and brothers and sisters would be playing hockey, and they'd say, "Oh, Terry, you can't play," Well, here, we'll put the puck down by your stick, take a shot. So I just shoot it, and the net's over there. Say, "Hi, George," draw, okay. And that was it. So I'd get back, then I'd be listening to them snapping the puck and score. And, I learned to skate. My dad taught me to skate. That was as easy as any other kid. Mm-hmm. But then I get to the school for the blind, and then I'm actually playing hockey. And here's how the dream came true. Here's how the dream adjustment unfolded. Throw away the rubber puck, get a tin can, put some marbles or pebbles in it, tape the hole over, throw it on the ice, makes a noise. Shoot the puck, it rattles. It's rattling across the ice. Sometimes if it's airborne, you lose track of it. But mm-hmm. You know where the net is, and you're chasing this can around. And I think even these days they have a beeper in the puck. But so that was making the dream come true for me. I became a hockey player by getting rid of the puck mm-hmm. and employing the tin can. Then take it another step further. When my son was growing up, I could play hockey with him like any dad would do with his or her kid. Amazing. Or mom, right? So that I live my life that way. Like that's the way I live. So that's how I downhill ski. I swim. I've driven Sea-Doos. I golf. I drive golf courses. Drive golf carts by someone putting. Can you see my hands on my shoulders?
Yeah.
So someone turns my shoulder so that I'm sitting behind the wheel. Someone puts their hands on my shoulders. This works better in a real car because someone's mm-hmm. behind you. But someone sits beside me in the golf cart, turns my shoulders. I turn the wheel to the degree, and I can stay on a narrow golf path by someone doing this, or transform that to a Sea-Doo out on that lake, and someone's doing it behind me, and I'm moving at 60 miles an hour. Boom, having fun, and that I'm trusting the person driving my shoulders. Mm-hmm. But I can make it. I can make that as well. Small. I could drive it on an island. I can drive that Sea-Doo just by looking at it from a different perspective. Someone else's eyes connected to my shoulder, looking around at the thing around that, and the environment around me, and mm-hmm. I just drive it, and I get the sensation of speed, wind, and all that stuff.
That's amazing. And I did see that, like, you've had quite an accomplished life in athleticism as well, outside of music. What was it that pushed you into the music piece? Did that start at an early age as well, or is that something that came later?
No, well, at the school for the blind, mm-hmm. A lot of kids who are blind or partially sighted, just by default, play music. It just happens. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's anything to do with being blind, but it's certainly something that's available. And so it was at the school, and there were pianos, like take piano lessons. Kids play guitar, so we had little bands, and I started, playing in the band with some friends. And I remember, I don't know if do you remember the old Christmas Daddy shows here in Nova Scotia? I think they still have it. Maybe they have a different name for it maybe now, but so we did a Christmas Daddy show, our little band, and I was with 15, 16. We were hired. At the time, I was playing the accordion, and a Newfoundland club called us up and said, tell the people at the school they want to hire us to play. So I started playing and making money when I was 15, 16. And I'm just going to take a drink of this thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get this before I... lemon. So it started in school. And then I started speaking in schools because someone asked me to come and play music one time. So I liked it because I thought, wow, I can get my weekends off instead of playing every Saturday, Friday, Saturday nights. And I can do some schools. So I did a show. They liked it. And I started calling schools to find out if they wanted to hire me. And no one did. So this principal friend of mine said, you know what, Terry, if you add an educational component to your school show, I'll hire you. Right? Problem solving again, right?
Yeah.
And so I did it, and I've done thousands of schools since then because of that, which diversified. Then I got me talking I talk in keynote presentations in corporations and schools and all of that. So it all came together that way.
It's amazing. I like the creativity and thinking outside the box in order to create your own opportunities, which it just seems to be, in general, you've applied that to all aspects of your life.
Well, you do that. I think you've done that in the music world.
Yeah.
When you have it, right? Like you're a programmer, right? Or a tech guy.
Yeah.
But look at what you do. This is something that a lot of people would think maybe something I can't do, but you're doing it. And you like it. So it's becoming, I think, it's developing more than a hobby, right?
Right. So, yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's accelerated beyond that. I'm not quite sure what I'd call it anymore, but to your point, it's just to keep motivated, to keep doing it. And a lot of people that I've interviewed lately have had the advice for creatives that are out there maybe thinking about doing something, that the best time to do something is now.
Yeah, do it now. Brian Tracy's a professional speaker and teacher, coach, and one of his mantras was "Do it now." And I just listened to, you know, the CBC show Quirks and Quirks.
Mm-hmm.
So the host of that show, what's his name? Anyway, he just released a book, and the book is called "Just Say Yes."
Yes.
So I heard an interview with him a couple of days ago when they were promoting the book, and he said, even if I didn't, if someone offered me something, I'd say yes. And if I didn't know how to do it, then I'd go find out how to do some of it in some way.
Yes.
And so that takes courage. Someone told me one time, if you're offered an opportunity, if it scares you and excites you, take it. But if it's just one or the other, maybe you need to think about it. But nothing wrong with being scared,
No.
But if it scares you, but does it also excite you? And the excitement part is the way to say, yeah, I'm going to do that.
Yeah, it's something that's out there worth chasing.
Yeah.
Now, for yourself, like I had mentioned, you've been in the game quite a few years now, and I had just had the opportunity to catch you live here close to me in Pictou, Nova Scotia. I'm curious for the future, like going forward the rest of 2024 into 2025. Mm-hmm. I assume that we're going to have more opportunities to see live Terry Kelly shows.
That's my intention. And what for the last number of years, I did some of that, but I was doing mostly schools and corporate talks, which I love. And it's a good way to supplement. It's a good way to make a living, actually. And you learn and grow. But I really love playing with other people, and I love helping young people who want to be in the business, to get them on the stage and make them, help them become comfortable and share what I was. I believe that anything that anyone has given me from an opportunity perspective, or anyone who took the time to develop a skill that I have, always pass it on. Someone has helped me. I have a responsibility to help others. And so that's one of my big things as well, my important things in my life. But so, over the last year since I started, year and a half, I guess, since I started back playing concerts, I've used full bands, duo, trio. So depending on the what the job brings in. I used to say I have to have a band, and
Yeah.
oftentimes I'd be paid. Sorry, everybody would be paid except me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or, pay for all expenses. It's, as you know, you've traveled with bands.
Mm-hmm.
It costs money to travel.
Yeah.
But
it adds
so
up quick.
yeah, it does add up quick. But so my belief is make it, get gigs, jobs where I can play with, at least with trio if I can, or even the duo that you saw.
Yeah.
That young lady who played with me that night. She's, I don't know if you knew this or not, but she's 18 years old.
Yeah, we had a conversation off to the side. I told her to reach out when she's ready to start promoting her own solo stuff there too, because I know she's got her own little thing on the go too.
She does. I'll remind her that.
Yes.
Yeah, and she just started at NSCC as well for a music program this year. So, but and her friend, her boyfriend who was with her, he's 1 year older than she is, and he's out there doing the East Coast Music Awards shows, all the other shows. He started working with me 3 years ago, and now I said to him, "You're too busy. I can't hire you anymore."
Yeah.
Right. So, which I love, but the fact that he's out there.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So if people want to keep up to date with what's going on, so they might be able to catch you at a live performance or anything else that you may cook up, since you are an outside the box thinker. I know you have a website, is terry-kelly.com. Is that where most people should go to follow what's going on?
Yeah, right now that website it's got, it might be dormant right now. We're just reviving. We're revising it.
Okay.
So within, I'd say, this is mid-September. By the end of September, it should be up and running.
Perfect.
So that's certainly one. And then my Facebook, personal Facebook, as well as the professional one. And people can search me out and just find out that way. But it will be listed on a regular basis on the website within, I'd say, 2 weeks. Excellent. And so, and also, of course, my music's up on Spotify and a bunch of stuff on YouTube. There's a bunch of videos up where when I'm running. I should mention as well that when I was at the School for the Blind, time for one more story?
Yeah.
There was a teacher, a phys ed teacher, who thought if you're totally blind, you shouldn't run. And so when track and field day came along, he said, you guys are blind, no running. You can jump, you can do all kinds of things, shot put, you name it, but running's not practical. So he retired after about 2 years after I heard him say this. Another phys ed teacher came. He was Mr. Fraser, who was doing a bit of everything. He said, "So who wants to run?" We said, "We can't, sir." And he said, "Why not?" He said, "Well, because we're blind. It's not practical." So we're repeating back what we heard, right? So we were blind in our mind because Mr. Fraser said, "Well, I thought for running you only need a pair of legs. What are you talking about these eyes? The eye thing." I said, "Sir, well, it's just not practical." So he said, "Well, let's figure out how you can do it safely." So we developed a way to run with a guide runner, and we checked around the world. Other people already doing it. But what happened from that, I was on a track team, and I became the third totally blind person in the world to run a sub 5 minute mile. And our track team, 3 of us on that team did exactly that. And so there's an example of parents, teachers being afraid or not knowing.
Yeah.
And the first teacher was a fabulous teacher, but he just had a blind spot. He was partially blind. And Mr. Fraser, what Mr. Fraser said was, "I thought this was a problem solving school." We said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Well, let's figure out how to do this." And we figured it out through a 3-legged race thing. You ever run a 3-legged race before? Yeah. So let's do that principle. So we're not going to tie your legs together, but we're going to synchronize your stride. Let's try that. But he didn't tell us. We talked that through. And we had to come to that realization ourselves with his guidance.
So it's all about believing in yourself and listening to those positive voices that are out there.
Right. And the more you find a way to do something, you make the impossible possible.
Yes.
So impossible, it becomes possible, which means it was never impossible in the first place.
Yeah, I like it. I like the
Right.
mindset. It's very inspirational, and hopefully, some of the people that you've been mentoring over the few years here too have bringing that out to their own communities and passing along to the next generation after them.
Well, my commitment is to share, and I think that has happened, and it does happen to some degree.
Yes.
And I thank you for the opportunity to be on your show.
Oh no, thank you for your time, and I do appreciate you sitting down to talk with me today. Maybe we'll get a chance to do it again in the not too distant future.
Let's make it happen. As a matter of fact,
Absolutely.
I heard you interview Mike Campbell,
Yes.
and when you said that to him, he said, "How about tomorrow?"
Yeah, exactly.
How
Yeah.
about tomorrow?
Might be
Anyway,
ready to make it daily.
yeah. Oh, and if I can mention, I don't know if you can do this
Mhm.
on your show, but um, since Remembrance Day will be coming up before too long,
Yes.
I have different videos and songs that I've written for the military, and one of my most recent videos is for the Canadian uh, Royal Canadian Air Force,
Yes.
and this is the centenary of the Royal Canadian Air Force. So on YouTube, my song that I wrote with Jeff Campbell, who's he's not related to Mike, who is in the Air Force now, the director of the Staticona Band. We wrote a song called "No Sky Too High," and so anybody out there, just check that out. We wrote it for the centenary of the Air Force.
Yeah, we'll have a
Yeah.
link to it here at the end, and encourage everyone to take a view when they're done watching this episode.
Brilliant.
Right.
And so, yeah, may your show continue to grow. And yeah, I'd love to come back. Thank you.
Perfect. We'll talk again soon.
Okay. Yeah.
Bye.